Paul McCartney spent decades hiding his true feelings about one woman. She walked into Beatles recording sessions in 1968 and destroyed everything. She used their instruments without permission. She broke their sacred thing rule. The other Beatles hated her presence too. Paul felt pushed aside as his best friend chose her over the band. In 2023, he finally confessed the uncomfortable truth. This woman didn't just break up the Beatles. She broke Paul's heart in ways no one understood. Paul McCartney was born on June 18, 1942, right in the middle of World War II. Liverpool was being bombed constantly by German planes, and families like his had to hide underground almost every night. His father Jim worked in cotton sales, while his mother Mary was a nurse at Walton Hospital, the same place where Paul was born. The family lived dangerously close to the docks, which were always under attack. When Paul was born, his father joked that he looked terrible, like a piece of red meat with one eye open, crying nonstop. That rough beginning during a time of bombs and blackouts shaped how Paul would see the world. When Paul was just 5 years old, he had already learned to fight. He remembered hitting a boy with a metal bar and getting told off in front of the whole school. He needed that toughness later, especially after passing the 11+ exam, which got him into the Liverpool Institute. But his success didn't make life easier because his mother was Catholic and his father was Protestant. He became a target. The other boys, mostly from Protestant families, bullied him harshly every day. A school felt like a battle, and Paul learned to protect himself. These early struggles stuck with him and would later show up in songs that talked about survival and standing strong. Paul's toughest moment came in 1956. On October 31st, his mother died from breast cancer. She was only 47. Paul was just 14 and couldn't believe it. She had kept the illness a secret, and after surgery she passed from a blood clot. Paul's first thought was heartbreaking. He asked what they would do without her. Money. Mary had been the main bread winner. His last memory of her was teasing her for how she said the word ask. That guilt never left him. Just a few months later, he wrote his first song, I Lost My Little Girl, as a way to process his grief. That loss would stay deep inside him, and years later, when he dreamed of her telling him everything would be okay, it inspired one of his most famous songs, Let It Be. Paul's father Jim was more than a salesman. He was a talented musician who played piano and trumpet. He had worked at the Hippodrome Theatre in Liverpool and learned music just by listening every night while running the spotlights. In 1957, Jim gave Paul a trumpet, hoping he'd follow in his footsteps. But Paul soon realized he couldn't sing and play trumpet at the same time, so he traded it for a guitar that cost $15. That simple choice completely changed music history. The guitar gave Paul a way to sing and create songs at the same time. His father's love for old music deeply influenced Paul's style, especially his fondness for strong melodies and catchy tunes. Even with school and music, Paul still had to work. In 1958, at age 16, he took on tough jobs just to help the family. He delivered coal during freezing mornings and swept floors at a cotton mill where the machines were so loud you couldn't hear yourself think. His grandfather had spent his life cutting tobacco at Copp's warehouse, and his father had worked in Liverpool's cotton exchange. These experiences taught Paul about working people, their pain, pride, and humor. Was this world that shaped many of the Beatles songs that honored everyday life. When Paul was 10 years old in 1952, something terrifying happened. He almost drowned while swimming with friends in one of Liverpool's flooded quarries. These deep pits looked fun but were deadly, filled with freezing water and leftover mining equipment. They were traps for children. Paul slipped under and his friends had to pull him out. Many kids had died in those waters. That scare left him with a fear of swimming that stayed for life, and maybe even a stronger sense of how fragile life could be. Then came the day that changed everything. On July 6, 1957, Paul went to a church fete at St. Peter's in Wilton. It was hot and sunny. He watched a boy named John Lennon play guitar using strange chords he'd learned from his mom. Paul, who was left-handed, flipped John's guitar upside down and played 20 Flight Rock perfectly, singing every word. He also sang Long Tall Sally like a pro. The band couldn't believe he could play, sing tune guitars, and knew all the hits. That moment was the beginning of a partnership that would shake the world. 2 weeks later, Pete Shotton saw Paul riding his bike and casually invited him to join John's band, the Quarrymen. Paul said he would after scout camp and a family holiday in Philly. His first real gig with the group came on October 18, 1957. Everyone wore matching jackets. They paid off slowly, bit by bit. What made this even more emotional was that John's mother, Julia, had died just 3 months earlier. Paul understood that pain. He had lost his own mother the year before. That shared grief brought them closer, and their music would carry the emotions they couldn't say out loud. By 1959, Paul and John were skipping school to write songs in Paul's bedroom at 24th Land Road. They sat face to face writing and recording ideas using a cheap tape recorder. Their first song together was Too Bad About Sorrows. Then came Just Fun and an instrumental called Looking Glass. They treated songwriting like work, building a notebook filled with over 100 songs long before they were famous. This was the foundation of their future success. But not everything went smoothly. On that same first Quarrymen